Good morning, everyone, and it's wonderful to be here in Glasgow. It's my first time, and hearing Christy talk about the history of Glasgow and the relationships that I know the people of Ireland have had with Glasgow through the generations and generations. So it was wonderful to arrive here yesterday. And I came on the plane, I took the bus into town, but it really was lovely to come into the city. I felt like I'd been here before, and I'm sure my own people who were sailing people would have probably crossed over the Irish Sea and the Channel and probably sailed up through the Clyde up to Glasgow at some stage. So it's wonderful to be here. It's also wonderful to hear Christy tell the story of what the Greens have been doing here in Scotland and what you've been doing locally here in Glasgow with your 7 councillors and with the Young Greens. And it's wonderful to see the rise of the Green movement here in Glasgow, because you can hear from Christy, there's so much that they're doing, and we need to inspire and we need to show leadership and show a way, and you've just demonstrated that. But also to hear the big picture story from Maggie, the story of Scotland, the story of Europe, and the story of the world. And listening to Maggie, she presented a pathway, and a pathway that the Greens have been on for many, many years. And the time has come, as she says. The time has come, and the only way it will happen is if we all join together, join forces, and encourage people to join the Green movement, because there is clearly a pathway, there is clearly ambition, and it's never been more important to have the Green voice at the political table than ever. So once again, I just want to thank you very much for having the opportunity for being here today. And I say welcome to you all, each and every one of you, but also I'm bringing a big hello from the Irish Green Party. And I thought I might start my remarks with just a little bit of an introduction to myself. As you're aware, I've spent most of my life, so from the age of 20, as a Greenpeace activist, campaigner, sailor, nuclear transport ship blocker. I've been... I was deported from Tahiti in 1985, having gone out there on a small little Greenpeace ship, the Vega, a yacht, to protest against the underground nuclear testing. I was a member of the Rainbow Warrior when she was bombed in the port in Auckland Harbour on the 10th of July 1985. And I'm not giving up. I still feel the activist. I still feel that need to go out and to work as hard as possible to create a better world. But one of the most scariest positions I had was as the human resources or the people manager of Greenpeace International. So it is, you know, it's all about that ability to work as a team and as a force in solidarity to fulfill the needs, as Christy and both Maggie have outlined. So it was only in 2014 that the leader of the Green Party, Eamon Ryan, asked me to stand in the European elections. So I'd been an environmental and social peace activist, but I'd never been a member of a political party. And it was a big step, you know, because we have this perception of politics and the difficulties and the fighting and the lack of progress and whatever. And I really entered politics with reluctance. But the party, the Green Party at that time, it was really weakened after the 2011 elections. And the Green Party in Ireland had been wiped out, and we had no members of Parliament, few councillors, and a small public profile in Ireland. And Eamon Ryan had gone out seeking people and probably had some difficulty But anyway, look, he came to me and I decided to step forward. So the race was a baptism of fire for me, but it was also an amazing learning experience, and one that showed me that politics was not entirely different from the campaigning activism from where I'd come. And whilst I wasn't successful in 2014, and Eamon Ryan had narrowly missed out on a European seat in Dublin, the Green Party results far exceeded expectations, and it heralded the revival of the Green Party on the Irish political scene, which set me up to run in the Seanad, or the Senate election in 2016. And that election was a big success for us in the Green Party in Ireland, and our leader and deputy leader both won seats in the Dáil, which is our lower house. So we had 2 seats back in Parliament, and then along came myself, May Féin in Irish, and I managed to secure a seat in the Senate. And I can tell you, there was no one more surprised than myself. So I remember my mother said to me, because I'm from the southeast of Ireland, and I said, look, is there any point in even going up there? I mean, what is the chance? I'm on the agricultural and fisheries panel, I'm Green Party, I'm a female, no experience, neither at council level nor national level, so what chance? And my mother said, you did a good campaign, you get up there now to Dublin, get into the town centre, and just, you know, with some dignity, sit there and just suck it up. Well, I went up on the bus from Waterford, and the count was happening, and as the numbers were coming in, it started to become apparent that I was going to possibly take a seat. And anyway, that evening, I missed the bus I was planning to go back on. And I'm a single parent, I have 3 children, my oldest has special needs. So as a mother, any of you here in the audience, or a father who's taking the responsibility of the children at home, I was kind of under pressure, so I missed that bus. But people didn't mind back home because they could see it was all over the radio and there was great excitement. So I got the last bus home, and it was incredible because I'd gone up there with no expectation. I knew I'd worked hard, but no expectation, and it was great to go back home on the bus as an elected representative of the Parliament. So it was great. I suppose it shows something about the Green Party and the Green movement internationally. Resilience. So much like yourselves, the Irish Greens have been through fairly tough times, bad elections, been unpopular or worse, totally ignored. But we stuck to it, hammered away, and had the courage of our convictions, coupled with the sense of urgency regarding the climate crisis and now the crisis in our democracy. An urgency that ensures that we must not give up. And we've seen how well that can serve us when we do get heard, when our issues do move back on the agenda. Currently, we are working hard with our 2 members in the Dáil and myself in the Seanad, where I'm lucky because I'm part of the Green Party in Ireland, but I'm also part of a strong and inspirational group of independent community activists, all of whom are new to politics. And we call ourselves, in the Seanad, in the Senate, we call ourselves the Civil Engagement Group, because we're all about engaging the voice of all people. It's a really exciting group, so if any of you later maybe check us out online, the Civil Engagement Group, and we're working very hard. So in Dublin, we're keeping, now with the members in the Dáil and the Seanad, we're keeping the green flag flying, and it is a tough political atmosphere with 10 parties and groups to compete with, and a somewhat chaotic political scene with an election always around the corner, but I don't have to tell you about that. Because so every day I go to work, for me, is a good day. The Scottish Greens, you've had your own breakthrough in 2016, getting back up to the levels in Holyrood, not seen since 2003, and getting a place at the budget table with the SNP, which is really significant, and elected with the support of more than 150,000 Scottish people who share your concerns about sustainability, climate, good governance, democracy, freedom and equality. That was endorsed last year with your best ever local election performance, and I have met a number of your councillors here today. My first one was Susan when I entered with her green glasses. It's just great to see how the Scottish Greens are growing, and it's a model of progress that we in the Irish Green are following with interest and with plenty of green envy. You've come a long way since Robin Harper was elected as the first Green parliamentarian in the UK and inspired the successes that have followed in England, Northern Ireland and Wales. And it was only last night Patrick was telling me that as far as he knows, Robin Harper became a member of Greenpeace, the Green Party and the Friends of the Earth the day after the bombing of the Rainbow Warrior. So isn't it amazing how that thread is still out there? And hopefully you'll go from here and you will inspire people to become a member of the Scottish Greens. So I'm predominantly from a rural constituency of Waterford in the southeast of Ireland. And like Glasgow, it's an ancient and important city. But it's also about farming interests and rural pursuits as it is about public transport and urban issues. And this can be a challenge for us Greens, but since being elected in 2016, I've been able to rely on the work of an incredible team of hardworking people around me who help me to pursue our issues. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to use a little bit of marine analogy after my decades on board Greenpeace ships at sea, where I'm very living beside the coast. Like probably many of you here, I'm very much inspired by the sea and the natural environment. My feeling on being part of the Green movement is a little bit like sailing. Sometimes the winds are blowing with you and sometimes they're not. We've experienced that in Ireland after a tough time in government losing all our seats. You've experienced it in 2007 when you went from 7 to 2 seats at Holyrood. But we stayed the course. We stick to our principles and our policies, and we batten down the hatches at times, but we keep waiting for conditions to improve and the tide to come in. And I feel the tide is starting to come in. We've seen also across Western Europe just last week, as Maggie said, some winds are really starting to come in the favour of the Green parties. The results in the Netherlands, Germany, Luxembourg and Belgium recently have all been highs for the Greens. In Luxembourg, the Greens are re-entering coalition, having doubled their vote and their seats after the first time ever governing. In Bavaria, Germany, the Greens were the choice for those standing up against the hate and division represented by the anti-establishment forces like the AfD. In Belgium, Greens swept to power across the city in the local elections, driven by voters' faith in them as a force for rural renewal, optimism and decency. And again, Maggie spoke about that rural renewal, building in our cities and not always out on the margins. In Sweden, the Greens were a little bit more battered as they exited their first government, but saved from the 4% electoral threshold by the number of climate threats in the final weeks of their campaign that brought more support to them, and particularly support from farmers and rural dwellers to the message of climate action and stewardship. And I noticed that myself as I engage and speak with farmers down in the south of Ireland at home. My father was a farmer and a businessman. And in 2014, I felt more resistance. And today, in 2018, I feel that we're engaging and that we're starting to recognize that we have a common concern. And I'm feeling an openness. And that's really, really important because, again, you were saying about the narrative, how we tell our story. I mean, Maggie, you outlined ambition there, real pathway. And it's really important that we can explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, so get that narrative out there, but also engage and not be afraid to engage. And I can tell you in 2014, when I stood for the European election, I was shaking in my boots, I was nervous about engaging, but I'm feeling a kind of a strength more and more because the issues are so pertinent and the need for action is so important, and it has to happen soon. And sometimes people talk about, we have to do that for future generations. We have to do it for now, for here, now, for ourselves, for future generations. But the action has to happen now. So back to the sailing. So sometimes we'll have the wind with us, sometimes not, but we need to work, we need to strive towards what we see as decent and crucial at all times, always ready to seize opportunities to pursue our goals. The European connection, I think, is of particular importance for us as Greens. I think that this might be most keenly felt and similar between us as Scottish and Irish Greens. Both nations share a Celtic or Celtic past. Both have been part of Britain at different times. Both have our own experience and feelings about that relationship. And both have overcome initial scepticism about membership of the European community to now embrace it as an essential part of our nationhood, identity, and our security. For Ireland, that European identity has involved finding the ability to stand on our own 2 feet, to engage in the world as a small island nation with an enhanced influence. It has also allowed for the cessation of the political conflicts that have plagued Northern Ireland for almost 3 decades. It has showed us all, English, Welsh, Irish, Northern Irish and Scottish Greens, to grow and prosper separately and yet also together when it matters. It allowed us Celtic nations to emerge from the role of former English subjects to full citizens and equal citizens as Europeans. The Irish Greens, like others in Western Europe, have moved from a position of strong Euroscepticism and concerns over Europe's homogenizing role to see it instead as a collective force for good, a progressive alliance for managing globalization, and the best tool available to protect and enhance our environment, our social and democratic rights, and the peace that has defined European relations for decades, a peace that now seems threatened once again. I was particularly happy to be invited to your conference this year as we face into the deadlines and the realities of Brexit. Brexit, something that we discuss every day in Dublin, every day in Ireland. In fact, it's on everyone's mind. A guillotine blade hanging ominously over the political, economic and social progress that has defined the island of Ireland since the Good Friday Agreement came into effect. All of the political forces in our Parliament, along with the overwhelming majority of the population of Ireland, are united in their view that Brexit is an unmitigated mistake, a colossal error whose damage can only be minimised at this stage, not eliminated. There is a cross-party unity on our approach within everyone, from left-wing nationalists of Sinn Féin to right-wing governing party of Fine Gael, all agreed that we must look at remaining EU member states and the Union itself to protect the peaceful and borderless island we have worked so hard to create. The negotiating position in Westminster seems either confused or unaware of this unity compared to the governments of Merkel and Macron, to the European Commission and the EU chief negotiator Barnier, a man who understands the political sensitivities of Northern Ireland. I say this not as a criticism of the government of the UK, but out of deep concern that we are 3 seconds from midnight, and yet no resolution of the crucial questions are in sight. Conference after conference, meeting after meeting, we seem little closer to resolving the key issues of how the UK can get the level of disengagement from the EU's single and common markets without totally isolating itself from its neighbours and creating future political turmoil. And it does hurt, because we really have worked so hard, and so many people through the generations, to be united and part of something big, the European Union. And it does hurt, because I have family in the UK, and I have relations, and we all have family and relations in the UK and across Europe. And you know what is happening at the moment, it is causing unrest, and it is causing a kind of element of fear, the fear of the unknown. But the fact that day by day we get no closer, we get more confused, is really not helping to create any stability in Europe. And I think particularly the Irish and the UK with England, that relationship has been so strong for so long. It's a pity to see it being damaged at this time. So, as I said, I mourn, as I believe most people do, for the amount of time and effort that has been put into the process, and it's just a waiting game. But I know our government in Ireland is really steadfast, and they're really trying to do their best for the Irish people and within the European context. And I do hope that Theresa May and her government will recognise the potential damage that will be caused by their inaction and their leaving of the European Union. Just last night I saw a picture on Twitter of the new EU-Singapore trade deal, this massive new deal that has been just agreed. And I don't know much about the deal, and I'm sure it's not perfect at all, but it has taken 2 years of intense negotiations between the EU and Singapore and member state governments. So it's no doubt involved compromises and concessions from all sides, with mountains of specifics and details. But in it stands in stark contrast to what we have seen so far from Theresa May's government, and that is leading to preparations for the no-deal Brexit in Ireland. These things have a way of becoming self-fulfilling, and this has to be avoided. Ireland may think that Brexit is a disastrous error, but that does not mean that we want it to be a disaster. Of course we don't. I understand that you will be deciding your position on a second people's vote at the conference today, and I do not want to interfere with that process, but I think Maggie has given her intent already, but I mean, I certainly do hope it'll be an interesting and positive discussion. The only thing I will say, we Greens, we stay the course, no matter what way the wind is blowing, and we stand up for what we believe is right. We stand for openness, tolerance, democracy, progress, freedom, and equality. We do it when it's popular, and we do it when it's not. We stand by what we believe. And this is why I chose to be a member of the Green Party. And as I said to you, it took quite some deliberation, but I knew the Green Party stood for the values that I'd worked on since pretty much all my life, from the age of 20, from joining Greenpeace. So this is what unites Greens all over Europe and the world, is that commitment to our goals and to, Maggie, as you said, like just a clean and peaceful world. Clean air, clean water, that we live in unity and harmony, and we don't, that we're part of planet Earth. I'm an ecologist, so it's all about that ecosystems approach. We are only part of this great system, but we have to mind it and do our best not to cause any damage for just the economic gain. So I'm very proud to be a representative of the Green movement. I'm happy with you today, and I hope that we in the Irish Greens and you in the Scottish Greens, that we can work together and collaborate, and no matter what happens, that we will be a united force for solidarity and strength and goodness, and we will work away as best as we can together to make sure that we have a better Scotland, a better Ireland, a better Europe, and a better world. Thank you very much.